Okay, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I hope you will find the webinar interesting. Yes, in case of any questions, just please write it down in the chat box. I hope you can hear me well. I work at Poznań Supercomputing and Networking Center, where we, among many other activities, also develop digital libraries and museums, archives, and so on. So websites which provide access to cultural heritage collections. And because of these activities, we try to introduce web analytics as a tool where we which we utilize when we discuss or decide about whether to introduce some functionalities or not, and so on. So something that allows us to better understand what the user do on the website. Web analytics is a very general tool. I mean, it's, as the name says, it's for any web page. But in the past years, we found out that there are a few things that are specific to websites like cultural heritage, like online cultural heritage collections. So in this presentation, I would like to start with explaining basically what web analytics is. In that context, also to explain briefly how websites work, because I think it's important to understand what's happening when you push enter in the address bar of your web browser. And then I would like to discuss two different ways to measure traffic and track users on websites. And at the end, I will quickly show you one of the most popular services to do web analytics, which is called Google Analytics. Okay, so starting with web analytics. In general, you could say that web analytics is an activity where you analyze the data that is related to how users are using your website, and the data is collected or is composed of various quantitative information that is collected completely automatically while users are using the website. You can very often, or sometimes you can see someone saying, "Oh, my website has this and this number of users." But there are a few more most popular metrics that are utilized in web analytics, but these are just really, the most popular but very basic metrics. So you have number of users, or in fact you could say number of unique users. So this is the number of people that visited your website in specific period of time. Then you have number of sessions, which is a bit different, because you may have one user which did, let's say, 2 or 3 visits on your website, and then you will have one number of users will be 1 in this given, let's say, week, and number of sessions will be 3. If this user during the session, during the visit on your website, if he or she visited 3 separate pages, like main page, search results page, and then page with description of specific object, then you will have 3 page views for such a session. Then you can try to divide number of page views per sessions. So let's say that your users during a month displayed, let's say, 30,000 pages on your website, and you had 10,000 sessions. So in average, for one session, you had 3 pages being displayed. Then you have average session duration, which is simply the average time that user spends on a website. And in fact, this is a bit tricky because the usual monitoring mechanisms that are used, or data collection mechanisms that are used by web analytics, they are not really able to say exactly when user left the website. Maybe the user is still on the website, but he's not clicking anything, or maybe he turned off the browser and he is no longer on the website. So this average session duration is well, an estimate of the time when that users spend on the website based on several factors. And the final of the most popular metrics is so-called bounce rate. So it says how many sessions were ended up just after seeing one website of one page of your website. So let's say someone found your website in Google. It looked initially interesting in Google search results, so he clicked on the link. Then he went to your website and he saw the content of the website. And he said, "Oh no, that's not for me," and he left. This means bounce. Someone came in and just left. Whether it's bad or not, it depends on the context, but I will say a bit about this later on. So here you have a screenshot from Google Analytics presenting all these basic metrics. So I will go briefly through the user interface of Google Analytics later on in the presentation. But as you can see here, you have in the top right corner, you have a period which you are analyzing. So in this case, this is from 1st to 31st of March 2018. Then you have a chart which is showing a specific metric. In this case, this is the number of users. You can set the resolution of this chart. So I'm interested in data aggregated to weeks. So I have 5 data points because there were 5 weeks in March. One of them very short, so it has much lower number of users. And then I have the statistics calculated for the entire period, so for the entire March in this case. And yes, you can see that, for example, in case of this page of this website, there were in total around 19,451 users, and they did the total number of users were 22,000 and 19,000 were new users. They did 46,000 of sessions, so 46 different thousands of visits, and the number of page views, so the number of pages they have displayed was over 300,000. So when you divide number of page views by number of sessions, you see that in average each session included 7 pages, and the average session duration in this case was 44 minutes and 10 seconds with bounce rate of 27, well, almost 28%. But this is just the basic metrics and how it is displayed in the user interface. Now, as I already mentioned, the most popular tool is for doing web analytics is Google Analytics. This is a free service from Google, which has well, good and bad sides. There is also paid service from Google called Analytics 360, but I'm not going into it during this presentation. But there are also open source alternatives to Google Analytics. You have links to 2 such tools here. Matomo is a piece of software, it's a package of software that you can download and install on your server to get, let's say, something like Google Analytics on your own. But of course, there are functional differences. And Matomo also offers its service as a service. So you can, instead of using Google Analytics service, you can use Matomo as a service as well. And there is another package called Open Web Analytics and a few more. But I think from the open source alternatives to Google Analytics, these 2 are the most popular. In general, when you think, okay, I would like to start with web analytics, which way I should go? Should I use Google Analytics or not? I would say like that. If you will use Google Analytics, you will get really nice set of features. everything will be working fast and nicely, but you send the information about the traffic of happening on your website to Google. Whether you are happy with this or not, it's your decision. You should for sure read the terms of service that Google provides. Alternative is that you download one of these open source packages, you set it up on your own, and then you have much more privacy, but you need to deal with the setup and configuration of the software. Okay, now very basic image. So how websites work. Of course, you have a user that is interested in some content, in some website. This website is running on some server. So the user sends something which is called request, and then this request may be, please give me main page of this and this website. And then the response contains the requested information. Of course, if it's allowed, if the website is currently running, and so on. What is also important to know is that usually, well, practically in all cases nowadays, a website, a single page, it's not just one request, give me the page and that's it, but the page has a lot of images or styling or some interactive JavaScripts embedded, and each such embedded object, like image, like multimedia, like some styling information, text styling, or the pieces that relates to how the page looks and how it works, what happens when you move mouse and so on. This requires additional files, so additional requests are sent to the server. So this is the very basic schema. A bit more complicated schema, to some extent important also, where you have like collections of cultural heritage objects. For sure, it's not enough to have a simple website, but you will have some kind of backend which is responsible for managing data that is made available through this website. So underneath you will have some kind of database, maybe some files like high resolution images or another type of multimedia are stored, and all that is served to the user through this front end, so-called front end of the website. To make it even a bit more complicated, when you have user tracking installed in your website, so when the user sends a request, the front end, and this is happening all the time, the front end is logging all the requests. So basic information that at this point in time, someone from this and this IP address requested this specific website. This is logged to so-called request log. But then when you have user tracking somehow installed or embedded in your website, usually the response that you send to the user with the main content of your website, it includes so-called tracking code. Tracking code is a small piece of usually of JavaScript code, so something that you have like inside the website. As a user of the website, you don't see it. It's not a text that appears in front of you, but it's somewhere in the website. And when it will reach your computer, it collects some information about your computer, about like, for example, resolution of your computer, about language and so on, and it sends it to this additional monitoring service. This additional monitoring service, it can be Google Analytics, or as I said earlier, it can be one of open source packages that you are running, or any other solution that you will decide to use. There is one more connection with this dashed line here. So you may also decide to provide some additional information from your front end to this monitoring service. And when you will do that, you can then combine information collected on the user side and on the server side in one analytics service. And I guess this is the most powerful approach. But of course, it's not very easy to achieve, to make sure that the data is properly combined. Okay, before I will go further with how we can track the users, I think it would be good also to say what we can do from the user point of view. So I think currently all the browsers have something like developer tools. So you can try to find maybe in context menu, maybe in some tools menu in your web browser, you should have something like developer tools. And when you will open it, you can exactly see all the traffic that is going on. So for example, on the screenshot that you have on the right side, you see just a small piece of requests that were sent to the server and that got some response to my browser back when I opened main website of the BBC. Of course, this allows us to see what is like happening behind the scenes when the website is loading, and you can also see to what server these requests are sent. It's maybe not readable for you, but for example, in more or less in the middle of all this of the list of these requests, there is clearly one request that the one here, I marked it in yellow, that is sent not to the BBC CO UK server, but to some another machine which has some analytics in the server name. So obviously there is some user tracking installed. And if you want to maybe go like be sure that you know who is tracking you and with what, but you are not interested in analyzing all the requests, you can use add-ons to the browser. I personally use Ghostery plugin, which is free and is available for many browsers. You have a screenshot of Ghostery here in the bottom left part of the screen. So, for example, on the BBC CO or BBC.com website, it showed me that it has 7 trackers installed. 5 of them were classified as advertisement-related trackers. One was related to some kind of customer interactions, and one tracker was classified as web analytics. So here I can choose which trackers I do allow, which I block, and this allows me, or this helps me a bit to be more private on the internet. So this is something that I do as a user of the website. But on the other hand, as an administrator of the website, as someone who is interested in finding out what people are doing on my website and how I could improve the website to make it more useful, of course, I'm not very happy that people are blocking such kind of tracking, but I can completely understand that. So there are 2 basic ways how to measure what people are doing on the website. One is that you do it on the client side. So as I mentioned, when someone enters your website, he or she sends a request, please give me the content of this website. My server returns this content, but it includes a small piece of JavaScript code, which collects some information and sends it back to my analytics service. With such approach, I can get much more information about the user environment, like the browser configuration, the resolution of the screen, and much more. I have also much more tracking possibilities, and this is in fact quite scary from the user point of view, that you enter our website and you are not aware that this website is logging not just the fact that you entered the website, but it is logging your mouse movements, or it is recording your screen, not the entire screen, but the screen, the part of the screen that is used to display the website. So later on, someone can view what you were doing, how you were scrolling through the screen, what you were typing in, and so on, in a form of a video. And this can be done completely without asking you for permission in terms of technology. When you use tools, analytic tools that are working on client side, because they collect much more data, usually they have also quite good analytical interface so that you can work with that data later on. But from the point of view of someone who is interested in getting as much data as possible, the bad side is that as I showed you on the previous slide, people can use plugins like Ghostery and can block that analytics. People can, of course, maybe not everyone, but in general, it is possible to start to report a fake data. So when I have this tracking script on my computer running, the analytics service, let's say it trusts this script that it will provide valid information. But I could modify it a bit or try to behave like such a script and try to report some fake data. And finally, and this is especially important in the context of cultural heritage collections online, when you present not just text pages, but also rich media files, that with such client-side approach based on JavaScript code embedded somewhere in the website, you cannot really track all files which does not contain tracking code. So it means that when someone is requesting a website with a text, okay, you can embed tracking code in that. But if someone is requesting high-resolution image or a PDF file, then you cannot embed JavaScript inside an image, so this part will not be tracked by the analytics mechanism. You can try to go around it somehow, but the default configuration will not track downloading of so-called binary files. Another approach is that you try to do the tracking on the server side. So, as I mentioned, all the requests which are handled by the server, anything that will reach the server is logged. So it will have the server log will contain a text of line saying, as I said, at that time from this IP address someone requested this and this part of your website. Happily it includes also the binary files that could not be tracked with JavaScript. But for example, it also includes search engine robots requests. So if you have Google going to your website to index it, you will have also all the Google requests in your log, and you have to filter it out. With JavaScript-based analytics, it's usually somehow handled by the analytics platform. The other bad side is that with such server-side tracking, you only have one line of text that is stored in the log file, and it contains just basic information about the user browser and about the request. You cannot do things like recording the user screen and so on. And usually, because the amount of data or the variety of data is much smaller in the server-side approach, the analytical tools which are available, they are also much poorer than what is available for typical web analytics. You have to be also aware that data collected and processed by different tools will give different results. So, for example, for a few websites, I have both Google Analytics tracking and Matomo tracking, so like a server for web analytics running in PSNC, which collects data for us. And the data which should be identical because this is the same service that is being monitored, the same users and so on, the data is different. It's maybe not very, very different, but in general the numbers are not equal. So if you try to compare information from different periods of time or from different websites and they were collected using different tools, even if the way the tool works is the same, so they all use JavaScript tracking and so on, the data will be different. When you will try to compare data that is collected on the client side with the data that is collected on the server side, the results will be very, very different, and I will show you an example later on. So, of course, there will be much less to compare because the server side data is much more poor, but still the parameters that you will be able to compare on the server side, usually they will be much bigger, the ones related to the traffic. So I guess the optimum solution is to combine client-side data or traffic monitoring and server-side traffic monitoring, but it's not very easy because you have to be sure that you can connect the identity of the user. So you know that the person who is, or the data that was logged in from the client side can be connected with this specific piece of data from the server side because they relate to the same user. If you cannot achieve that, then you will multiply users in your system and the data will become useless. So I guess the most important is, of course, to use the same tool continuously. Just choose one tool and try to use it continuously. Because if you will be switching tools often, as I said, you will not be able to compare data from one tool to another. Or you can try to do it, but there may be some mistakes in such comparison. It's also really good to start by defining the aim of measuring the traffic or specific aspects of the traffic and the way how you want to interpret it. Because context here is really crucial. For example, here you have, I'm still sticking to these basic parameters, but I will show you that Web Analytics can do much more. But here you can see that you have basic parameters from two different websites. Looking at each parameter, for sure we can see that the service on the left has much more users, few times more users, and of course new users as well. Because the bigger number of users, we have also bigger number of sessions. But what you can see here is that the number of page views is not really so different. So I could say that I have, with the service on the left, I have like 4 times more users, but only, let's say, 50%, around 50% more page views. So it seems that the users are displaying much less pages per session. For the for the data on the left side, you see that pages per session is just 3.43. For the right part, you see that it's 7.06. Also, when you will take a look at the session duration, then the difference is really huge. On the left, you see that the average session lasts only 3 minutes, and on the right you have 44 minutes, so it's huge. So I could say, okay, it seems that the service on the right, it has much smaller group of users. I forgot to say the data is of course for exactly the same period of time, and the data is collected with the same tool. So I could say, okay, the service on the right, it has a smaller group of users, but it seems that these users find that service much more useful than the users of the service on the left, because on the right they spend much more time. But the thing is that these are different services. They are both from cultural heritage domain. But the one on the right, this is a digital library where people are searching for books and they spend some time reading these books online. While on the left, we have so-called metadata aggregator, Polish one, which PSNC operates. It's called Digital Libraries Federation. And the main functionality of that website is to allow people to find something interesting, and then they are redirected out to the website which is providing that content. So I can say that for the service on the left, for the search engine, short average session duration may be not so bad, because it may mean, it doesn't have to, but it may mean that people relatively quickly find what they are looking for. Of course, I could say, well, maybe the time could be longer. It would be better if it would be longer, because it means that people find a lot of interesting things and they spend a lot of time on the website. Maybe, I don't know, it requires bigger or deeper investigation. And that's, I think, really key to understand, that it's very easy to compare these basic numbers. But in fact, without a context, without deeper understanding what people are doing, what is the aim of the website, and so on, comparing these numbers makes really no sense unless you have really similar websites and you want to say, okay, my site has more users than yours or something like that. But But from the point of view of a single website, looking at these numbers, just take a look and say, okay, 44, it's just 44. Okay, so there are a few problems with these most popular metrics, and of course it influences all the analysis that are later on are based on these metrics. So at least the two that I have observed is one is that when Google is indexing our websites and we have, for example, a website with a lot of content in PDFs. These PDFs, they are indexed by Google, and you can find such PDF as one of the results on the Google search results list. When a user will click on such PDF, he will get content from our digital library, but it will be not logged in any way to Google Analytics, because what the user will get is directly the PDF file without the JavaScript tracking embedded. So this piece of this part of traffic will not be visible in Google Analytics. It will be, of course, visible in server-side logs, but for Google Analytics, it will be invisible. Another scenario is that when someone is searching, let's say again in Google, and he or she is getting a search results that provides a link to page with metadata of an object. So I go to specific page. It has JavaScript tracking code embedded. I see, okay, this is this book with this title and with this creator and so on. Perfect. That's what I wanted. And then I do a second click. So the first click, which first request was to get the page with metadata, and that was logged into Google Analytics. And then my second click is leading me to the PDF file. Because this PDF file does not have tracking embedded, then the second request will not be visible to Google Analytics, which means that from the point of view of Google Analytics, I entered this digital library with just one request and then I left. While in reality, I entered the page, I saw the metadata, and then I opened the PDF file and I was reading it for, like, let's say 30 minutes. So you could say, oh, it's really bad because it was a bounce. Someone just came in and then escaped from my website. But in reality, someone came in and spent a lot of time and maybe left happy after reading the material that he was looking for. So to show you that it's really important to understand these two issues that I just described, I collected information from four different Polish digital libraries. This is data for the entire 2017, and I have two columns about the number of sessions that happened during that year. According to Google Analytics, you see that, for example, for the first website it was 300,000. 304,000 exactly, but according to the server-side data, it was over 2 million. Of course, as I said, these are different tools, so it's not really easy to compare the data. For sure, one of the factors which provides some let's say risk here is that the traffic generated by robots may be not really good excluded on the server-side data. It's probably better excluded on the Google Analytics data. On the other hand, the server-side data for sure includes all the sessions that were generated by people who were blocking the tracking or who entered the website just directly hitting the PDF without getting any HTML page with embedded tracking code. So as you can see, the biggest difference here is for the third digital library. This is in fact a research repository which has several tens of thousands of PDF files. So content that is especially interesting for Google, and I think that's one of the reasons why the traffic here on the server side is much bigger than the one that is generated, that is logged on the Google Analytics side. Another comparison. Now you see data about the same website collected with the same tool, but in 2 different months. Here you have March 2018 on the right, and on the left you have March 2017. Let's assume that in average the traffic, the real traffic on this website was more or less the same. There was no big promotion of the website between March 2017 and 2018. Nothing really spectacular. The content, the amount of digital objects that are available on this website, it's more or less still the same. There was some growth, but nothing really significant. But when you will compare the numbers, you can see that in 2018 you have smaller number of users, smaller number of sessions, but for example, the average session duration is much longer. What we did between March 2017 and March 2018 is that we made the user tracking a bit more advanced there. We started to track the time when people are on the website but are reading the content. So they are not, they are on the HTML page where you have metadata, but you also see the content and you can, read page by page. Previously, at the point in time where the screenshot on the left was done, so in March 2017, we were not collecting such information. So when someone reached a page with the object of with the content of the object, the system assumed that this is the end, someone left, and that's it. Now, each minute, after each minute that user spends on the website, we send additional information from the web browser saying, okay, this guy or this lady is still here, he or she is reading. And this made 2 changes. Obviously, the session duration is much longer. So you could say that in average, people spend like 5 minutes to find something interesting in the library, and then another 40 minutes to read it. Of course, this is just a rough assumption. You can also see that the number of users is smaller, and this is probably because when someone was on the website, he was counted as a user, then he was reading something. Google assumed that this user left, and then when he finished reading and starts clicking on the website, then he was seen as a new user establishing new session. So this is really important to understand that interaction with multimedia content is by default not monitored, and it can really influence the information that you get about your website. So a summary image, very simple one, but you can say that the traffic that is visible in your server logs, so the overall traffic on the website, can be divided into 2 parts. Into part that is generated by different robots, and into a part that is generated by humans. And part of that overall traffic is traffic that can be visible in JavaScript-based traffic monitoring tools. And maybe part of that traffic is generated by robots. For sure, part of that is generated by humans. So on one hand, you have the overall traffic on your website, where you have these 4 squares, and just the one in the top, in the bottom right corner, the green one, is the part that you are dealing with when you are using web analytic tools. So it's not complete data, but still these tools are really useful, and I think they are worth using. Now I'd like to go to the part where I will try to introduce you to Google Analytics. I hope that you will not be angry that I'm promoting this particular service. The thing is that it's really easy to use and it's free. If you will decide to use some of the open source alternatives, which I also do in parallel to using Google Analytics, I think you will find this introduction to Google Analytics still useful because many types of reports and the approach to the interface is really similar. So the first thing you have to do is to set up a free account, or maybe you already have a Google account. And then when you will go to Google Analytics, you can register your website, and after registering, you will get a short piece of text, so-called tracking code, which you have to embed in all pages of your website. If you are using some kind of content management system or digital library management system, it should be possible to put the code somewhere and have it like automatically embedded in all the websites. Most probably some IT assistance will be required. Another thing that you should not forget to do is to add some additional statements in privacy policy that you have on your website or in any other section of the website where you inform your users about how you treat privacy, their privacy on your website. With Google Analytics, it's good to know that on one hand, by default, Google is not collecting things like personal data. So it will not collect name or email or whatever of your users. Also, the data that is stored in Google Analytics, it will not include details of things like IP addresses. But on the other hand, because Google is also running, of course, advertisement-related activities, they can combine analytics-related tracking with advertisement-related tracking, and then they can profile users. So it's really good to inform users that you are using this or that tool. On the other hand, if users are somehow privacy aware, they most probably will have add-ons which will block the monitoring. So maybe they will not even read the privacy policy, but they will try to block it. If you will decide to do some advanced installation, then you will first need to think what are your real needs, and then you will have to implement this additional tracking, but it really depends on the tool that you are using on your system and so on. But the basic installation to start with is really easy. And now I will try to switch my view to screen sharing. I hope it will work. If not, then write in the comments so that you can see example of analytics reports from a live website. So just a second. Yes, I hope you can see that. So this is data from one of the digital libraries in Poland, visible in Google Analytics, and I will try to go report by report, briefly showing you what is available in Google Analytics. So you have so-called real-time view, where you can see that, for example, now there are 70 active users on the site. 100% of them are from the desktop. You can see from what pages they are entering, those 70 or 71 now. You can see what kind of pages were top active pages in the last time window. You can see the locations. Obviously, most is Poland, but we have some visits from the States as well in the recent period. And we can go into details, like, for example, locations. So now it is divided by country, and for example, zoom in on Poland, and we can we can see from what cities people are entering, and as you can see here, the traffic somehow is focused on the southern part of Poland. This is because this specific digital library is related to this specific part of Poland. We can, for example, see the content that users are browsing right now. So you see the pages, and in this case, these are mostly pages related to specific books that people are or objects that people are browsing. Or someone is just downloading a zip file, for example. In this digital library, we also have so-called events. This is something which we use for monitoring the reading. So as you can see, we get these reading events all the time. So it means that people are on the website when they are not sending new requests, but they are just reading the content. Okay, so this is the real-time overview. Now we can go to another reports. The first section is about audience. So we have overview. As you can see, this is now set for March 2018, but we can, let's say, easily analyze year if we want to switch to have a period of 1 year, then we can achieve that as well. Yes. We can analyze the users by language, but this is just not like the language they speak, but this is the language they have set as their preferred language in their web browser. So you can see that it's Polish, German, English, German, Russian, English again, but just different types of English, Czech, Ukrainian, and Russian. We can compare that with the countries they are coming from, or even cities. We can, for example, see what kind of web browsers they are using, and in fact, such technical information about web browsers or about the screen resolution that people are having on their computers. This is really important for those who are developing the website. So you can see here that these are relatively low resolutions. A lot of people are using the website from probably a mobile devices. So it's clear sign that this website should support mobile users, and in this specific case, it supports its fully responsive website. If we will combine the information about users with some advertisement data, then we can get some estimates about age or even gender of our users. But this is not really like, you know, someone asked the people or check their IDs or whatever. It's just analytics data combined with advertisement data taken from Google. The same is about interests. So it's not really sure how reliable that is. Then you can have detailed data about language or location of the users. Maybe let's try to investigate a bit the location. So let's say I would like to find out from which cities in UK we had users in the period from March 2017 till February 2018. And I can have a so-called region view, or I can switch to city view. So obviously London is dominant, but there are a lot of other UK cities which in the past year had people visiting this specific digital library. We have information about behavior of the users, which means how many of them are new, how many of them are returning to our website, how often they are returning to us, how much time they spend, and so on. About technology, so what kind of browser, what kind of operating system, what's their network connection. For mobile users, we can get information about devices they are using. Then second section of reports is called acquisition. So this provides us information about where the users on our website are coming from. So the first level of report is division into so-called channels. So we have channel which is called organic search, which means someone simply found the website in Google, and the fact that it found it in Google was not a paid traffic, but it was so-called organic search. There can be also paid search traffic, so someone pays Google to put him on the search results list. Referral is that some website linked to us and someone used that link. Direct is someone simply knew the address or had it bookmarked. And social is a link from social media. And if, for example, we want to analyze it more deeply, then we can go into specific reports. For example, if we are interested who is providing the traffic to us, who is linking to us, and people are following these links, we can go to referrals. And then we can, for example, see that in this specific period of time, a lot of traffic was generated by Wikipedia, by some genealogic website, and by our national level metadata aggregator. And we also have these basic parameters about user behavior. So, for example, we can see that here the visits are quite long, even those from Wikipedia, which is probably a good sign. It could be a situation where we get a lot of traffic from some website, but the average session duration is very short, which means that, okay, people reach our website, but the average is much below the average duration of session from that website is much lower than the average of the overall visitors sessions. So probably something is wrong and people do not find this website, our website, as interesting as other users, for example, but it would also require some investigation. We can connect to another Google tool, which is called Search Console, which provides us information what people were typing in Google when they visited, when they found our website on the search results, and when they clicked it. we established, in this case, we established this connection some time ago, so it's not data for the entire period. And also for the privacy reasons, not all the queries are provided. So as you can see, we do with this approach we are missing like 94% of information. We have just 5% of queries. Then there is a behavior part, which, for example, allows us to check exactly which pages are most popular, and we can also filter. We have some internal error. That's interesting. Once again. Just a second, the page is loading. It's quite surprising because it's not really, it's not something that's happening often. This site gets technical problems, but as you can see, sometimes it gets. Okay, so of course, if you are not administrator of the website, you don't know these URLs by heart. But anyway, you can see, for example, which pages had the most page views. But for example, you can also sort them by average time on page. So you are not really interested which page got most hits, but which page was most attractive for users. So now you can see that I have 3 top publications. We can try to find out what it was, in fact. The people are, in average, spending there almost 30 minutes. Just for curiosity. Okay, sorry, we went to the main page. And then I should probably copy the URL. Just 1 second. So by doing what I'm doing right now, I can see that this specific address book was something that kept people for a long time on this website. It's loading. Okay. Anyway, what is also interesting, we can check the behavior. Oh, this is loading. Okay. So this is, let's say, quite spectacular view. So let's say we will start by choosing different types of sources as the first part. So here we have information that, for example, people who reach the website from Google, 25% of the total traffic goes from Google to specific publication. Direct entries are going mostly to this part, so we can like see how people are going on the website, when they are leaving the website, and so on. You can also, for example, analyze traffic. It's reloading. Analyze traffic going through a specific point in that network, and so on. It requires some time and also some like good understanding of the structure of the website to utilize this. But this is really nice to analyze how people are interacting with the website. Finally, you can also set up something which is called goals. So in the context of e-commerce, you can say that the goal of my website is to sell something. So I will set up in analytics, I will set up a goal saying user visited this page, which means we sold something to him, or user added something to the shopping basket, and so on. In case of digital library, of course, we are not selling anything, but we can also try to utilize these goals. So here we defined few goals. It's loading. Okay, that's strange. The behavior of the service is strange today. Okay, so okay, this is the goal names are in Polish, but I will quickly translate it. So, for example, we have goal saying someone downloaded the object as a zip file, someone displayed the content of the object, someone spent at least 1 minute, sorry, at least 5 minutes on the page with the content displayed. Someone spent at least 5 minutes in the digital library in general. Someone was browsing through indexes of metadata fields. Someone used advanced search. Someone used simple search. Someone used filtering during search results. Someone used results sorting, for example. So, you can, for example, when you want to, let's say you want to improve the way you promote data filtering of search results and how it works, then you can see, okay, we have this amount of people using the filtering of search results in the period of 1 week. So let's try to improve and deploy in the system, in the website, our new improved filtering, and we will see if people are using it more or less. So this is just one way to use the goals. And you can define goals by setting what kind of pages or what kind of information should reach Google Analytics, so that the goal is counted as achieved goal. And I think that's the last part of Google Analytics that I can describe to you. The tool is really powerful. It has a lot of configuration possibilities, a lot of possibilities to analyze and filter the data. Something that I have not shown you today, but something that is really useful, is that you can divide the data in so-called segments. So, for example, you can compare all the analysis that I showed you today. You can do in comparison between, let's say, people that came in from Wikipedia and people that came in from Facebook. Maybe you can find out that, for example, on one hand you attract a lot of people by your Facebook activities, but on the other hand they spend really short time on your website, and the result will be that it's not the best way to promote the website, or maybe the result will be completely different, of course. Okay, so this is the address book that was so interesting for the end users. Okay, now switching back to the slides. One final slide. Or if you'd like to have some further reading about that, on one hand, you can use online training materials which are provided by those who provide such services, so Google Analytics Academy or documentation websites of Matomo. If you would prefer some kind of book that introduces you in much more details than my brief introduction today, I guess I can recommend the two positions that are visible on the screen right now. The first one is really, really popular among all those who are interested in web analytics, but obviously you can it will be a bit more oriented towards also business usage. The second book also describes various web analytics possibilities, but it's a bit more focused on aspect, and it's focused on understanding what the users are doing on the website, and how the website could be improved to help them even more. So that's all from my side. I don't see any questions written during the presentation, but maybe if you have some questions right now, please write them down and I will try to answer.
Thank you, Martin. Do you have any questions?
But if there are no questions, then you'll see my email address at the slide as well. So in case of any questions after the presentation, feel free to contact me.
Yeah, I particularly found very interesting the presentation.
Well,
It helps to understand the Google Analytics. That you say, I find it very powerful, but you need to have some understanding to use it because of its power. I use Google Analytics, but I feel I'm missing some configurations and so on. And this webinar help me to understand how it works better.
okay, thank you very much. Well, I think that for someone who was never using Google Analytics, I would say 2 or 3 weeks of playing with the service allows you to start using it in practice. Oh, I see we have one question.
Yes.
Do you have experience with Matomo? Well, I have experience with Matomo. In fact, I'm using it for some time now, from the time when it was called Piwik. I would say that in some there are few features which at least some time ago were not possible with Google Analytics and were possible with Matomo. For example, the live view of requests is much more interesting in Matomo than in Google Analytics. On the other hand, especially if you have pages with a lot of traffic, you need to make sure that the installation of Matomo you are doing, that it is running on server that is powerful enough. Because if you will have a server that is not powerful enough, then you will lose some information. The logging will not work properly. And another really important thing that is, as I said in the presentation, that is crucial difference between analytics and, for example, Matomo, is that analytics is a service provided by a commercial company. So we had some projects where, because of that, it was simply not allowed to use any external service. The page that we were providing was public, but all the traffic monitoring data had to be stored inside our server room and should not be sent anywhere outside. And with Matomo, we could do that, and the analytical properties that it provides, I would say, are good enough for sure for at least some like regular work. I hope this answers your question.
Bye bye.